And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Logan, thank you for that. For just a moment, I was screaming in my own ear, thanks to the IFB. Everything's good now. Thank you guys for joining us on this lovely Friday afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona. I hope it's lovely where you are. Joining me today on my left, Andrew Shasha. Andrew gets a new title every couple
episodes
days.
I get a new title.
Yeah. So he oversees our independent staff writers right now, whatever title that is. And then joining us from an undisclosed location in what appears to be a basement with a conventional door that you would find in any American home anywhere. Writer for the Western Journal, contract writer for the Western Journal, Cameron Arcan. Cameron, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Cameron, where are you?
I'm in Orange County, California.
You're in a nondescript location in Orange County, California. One of the only places near LA where there is a prosecutor who actually wants to get criminals off the street, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, we're the only county kind of really in the area with some degree of mental stability, although it is kind of iffy depending on who you ask.
Impossible to find in America.
I mean, yeah, but we have a lot of Republican officials here who have been working hard throughout this whole COVID thing. A lot of businesses kind of stayed open throughout the whole process because the sheriff wasn't enforcing anything.
Well, that's the kind of sheriff I like, and we had a lot of that back in my home state of Arkansas as well. So lots of stuff going on today. We've got a really interesting story about Hunter Biden. That's right, we have Bombshell uncovered audio, and I'm not really joking or exaggerating when I say it's Bombshell. We're talking about new drug allegations. We are talking about evidence that claims he made in his book were patently false, and we've got other politicians dragged into the mix. That's exciting stuff coming up. We're also going to visit with Cameron about all things south of the border. And not really all things, but all kinds of people coming across south of the border. You might think it is only folks from Mexico or only folks from Honduras and Mexico. If you think that, you would be wrong. We've got folks coming in from all over the place. Cameron's going to have details on that. And then we're going to be talking with Andrew about some interesting stuff going on in the Senate right now, where you have a clear majority of the Senate trying to pass a bill, and it's being blocked. And he was trying to explain it to me earlier, and I'm not especially bright. As Norm Macdonald says, I'm just an old chunk of coal. But maybe he can explain it to you. Yeah, thank you for putting my name up as soon as I say I'm an old chunk of coal. So maybe Andrew can explain it to all of us. But first off to Hunter Biden. You can find these stories, by the way, on the Western Journal, westernjournal.com. The headline for this, Bombshell audio. Hunter Biden brags that he smoked crack with late D.C. mayor. That's a report. So the UK Daily Mail surfaced some very interesting audio today. It's pretty clear it's Hunter Biden speaking. He's speaking to a friend on the phone. There's a discussion about race. There's a discussion about Martin Luther King Jr. and whether or not he did drugs. And then Hunter Biden, in a spectacular bid to show that Hunter Biden is not racist, talked about how he did drugs with the former mayor and all-around black fella, Marion Barry. He was mayor of D.C. He's passed away since then, but Biden talks about doing drugs with him. We've got the audio here. This lasts for a little over a minute, so I'm going to ask Logan to cue it up and run it. We may pause it a couple times in the middle to talk with you about it. I'll probably pause it to remind folks who are just tuning in what's going on. But anyway, this is Hunter Biden talking on the phone with an undisclosed person who seems to be a friend, talking about drug use and making some really interesting admissions. Logan, let's run it.
Buckle in.
But, the big examples are Gandhi, these are the big examples of people who are like, so I won't eat, okay? Let's see how that goes for you people, okay? I don't need to eat. I can die, it's okay. But it wouldn't have worked if he was like, look, I'm going to do lines of Coke until I have a stroke. People would be like, okay, the storyline has gotten too here.
Are you sure he didn't do Coke?
I'm not sure because he loved girls. So I don't know.
I still haven't
Did
told
Martin
you.
Luther King use a lot of coke? I don't know.
I don't know. See, you are such a racist. I swear to God.
No, yeah,
No,
right.
the Indian
yeah,
didn't.
Right, an
but the-
Indian
no,
and
he
a black
didn't.
man.
He did not. Jesus Christ. Okay, but listen to this. You're so.
Here from D.C. did.
No, that Marion
Marion Barry.
Marion Barry. You know what? I actually smoked crack with Marion Barry. I swear to God.
Jesus.
I was in Georgetown, and he used to go to a place right next to the guards, and I was a sophomore, I guess. It was a junior when that happened, but he used to come there and drink like late, and I would be in there, and he'd go to the bathroom. But anyway.
So, are you ready to anticipate, welcome, and greet terrible pain?
So, Logan, maybe cue that up back about 40 seconds ago, because we're going to run a little bit of that again about 40 seconds ago. That is, if you're just joining us, that was Hunter Biden, seemingly Hunter Biden. It appears to be Hunter Biden. Sounds like Hunter Biden. Discussing with an unnamed person his cocaine habit, where he actually smoked crack cocaine with former D.C. Mayor Marion Barry. Logan, let's run that last portion again.
But the big.
I don't know. See, you are such a racist. I swear to God.
No, yeah,
No,
right.
the Indian
yeah,
didn't.
Right, an
but the-
Indian and
no,
a
he
black
didn't.
man.
He did not. Jesus Christ. Okay, but listen to this. You're so.
Here from D.C. did.
No, that Marion
Marion Barry.
Marion Barry. You know what? I actually smoked crack with Marion Barry. I swear to God.
Jesus.
I was in Georgetown, and he used to
That's
go
good.
to a place.
That's good. So I actually smoked crack with Marion Barry, and then some pretty casual, just taking the Lord's name in vain. That got bleeped out. If you're not clear what that was using the F word along with God, and then exclaiming Jesus Christ. So this is the president of the United States, son. Best we can tell. If you guys remember, the media just absolutely loved going after the Bush twins. They delighted in it. The Obama girls were completely off limits and were completely beloved. The media tried to tear apart the Trump family. And now they are giving just a free pass to President Biden on this. If you remember, Twitter actually suppressed a story about Hunter Biden just before the election. They actually did polling afterward and found that enough people say they would have changed their votes had they known about it. It could have swung the election the other way. The media simply does not care about President Biden's family troubles, foibles. I don't think they care about any wrong that comes from the Biden name is attached to. What do you think, Andrew?
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's where I would want to hit this issue is the media hypocrisy angle. I'm someone with a humor who thinks nothing is sacred, everything is can be made funny in my personal opinion. I don't particularly find this funny. I've kind of gotten disappointed in the amount of times that we've heard about Hunter Biden. It's just getting ridiculous. I'm not
disappointed in it. I don't think people talk about it enough.
I don't know. I would hold the previous opinion that the way that we treated the Obama children should be the way that all of these families are treated. The person in the limelight is the person in the limelight. That's the president of the United States. That's the figure, in office. When people were going after, the fact that Cheney had a lesbian daughter. I mean, I just think that those things are beyond ridiculous to just be hearing about all the time. And I think that's what the Daily Mail does. That's what TMZ does.
But they delighted in highlighting that, trying to use it as a lever as leverage against Cheney, or to paint him in a bad light, yes. To mix metaphors. They did this with Newt Gingrich too. His daughter, who was a lesbian, mm-hmm. They had her officiate a lesbian wedding on Friends, yeah. Which was just a complete poke in the eye. So the media, if they get the opportunity to use a conservative candidate's child against the conservative candidate or politician, yes. They will do it. But they have no interest whatsoever in touching anything that a Democrat's children are doing, even if it is just unbelievable. I mean, look, just think about it from the blackmail perspective. Remember how they used to talk about, oh my gosh, there's no telling what the Russians have got on Trump.
Yes.
They're blackmailing him.
Absolutely.
Oh, good Lord, they're blackmailing him. What in the world is out there that people could have on Hunter Biden and use to blackmail his dad? But we've heard nothing of that from the media.
Of course, and that's where I want, like, that is, like I said, where I would want to hit this issue, because it is a flaw in the media landscape. If you want to say no holds barred on anyone, fine, I wouldn't partake. But if that's the landscape you want to have, fine. It's, you know, there are very few there are a few places where I was very particular in that, you know, I don't think our side needs to stoop to the level with this stuff like this, and it is stuff like this. I feel terrible for this guy. I would like him out of the limelight. I would like this conversation had in private. And to a certain degree, that's the question of, you know, should Joe Biden be running the free world at a moment like this? His family is in shambles, has been in shambles for 5 to 10 years now. You'd think he should have stayed where he was after the Obama administration. He decided to take some time away after a loss in the family, and he should have stayed away, because there's stuff that needed to get work done, and that needs to get work done behind closed doors, and I hope that it does.
Cameron, you're in Orange County, the OC, so you must be familiar with lots of cocaine. In fact, you're one of the young fellas. You've maybe been places where they've done that kind of cocaine. Is this a problem? Is it a problem that the president's son is just utterly disgracing the name of the president, or does it not matter? Is it just who cares? He's not in control. He's not in charge. What do you think?
I mean, I think the point that you guys made about the media coverage is super important. I mean, Hunter Biden is basically X-rated Forrest Gump, so I don't really think there's anything that we can do about that. He's always
Whoa. Say that again?
He's X-rated Forrest Gump.
Hunter Biden is X-rated Forrest Gump.
He finds himself in every situation possible, and it just keeps getting worse.
He just shows up. He just keeps showing up in the most unexpected places.
I would agree with that sentiment.
He's the X-rated version of Hunter. He showed up in my life. I'm friends with the woman who had his love child. Hunter has shown up in my life. Very unexpected. That's interesting.
He's everywhere.
X-rated Hunter.
He's everywhere. He's unavoidable. And
he's unavoidable. He's inevitable.
He's going to keep finding ways to get into the news somehow. I honestly just kind of feel bad at this point. Like, this is just sad. Like, this whole thing is depressing, because you have a guy who clearly, I don't know if he has some stuff that he has gone through, and now it's kind of like all coming to the forefront. But the issue is that along the way, he kind of tried to get his way out of it by using his father's position.
Yep.
So that's kind of the whole issue with this. I don't know if this is going to have a particular breaking point, or this is going to be one of those stories that makes the round in right-wing media, and then maybe 6 months and a year from now, when Biden is maybe in a bad place with the mainstream media, which I don't think is going to happen, then they'll be like, oh, wait, here's all this Hunter Biden allegation stuff that we're going to put out. Like they've been doing with all the coronavirus news. So I don't think there is going to be too much to come out of this besides reconfirming what we already knew about Hunter Biden.
So let's, for a minute, let's kind of say that, okay, Hunter Biden's foibles, they don't reflect on the president necessarily. They you know, because Hunter is messed up, that does not mean Joe Biden is messed up. There are people who are great parents who have terrible kids.
Yes,
there are people who are terrible parents who have great kids.
My mother is a fantastic example.
Yeah, great parent, terrible child, as we all know and can see. And Biden, if you look at the texts that Joe Biden exchanged with Hunter Biden, it is clear that he loves him. It's really heartbreaking.
Saddest set of messages
In fact,
I've ever seen.
I remember our angling one story about how, I mean, this is just so sad what Hunter has done to his dad. So maybe it's not an indication that Joe Biden is irresponsible or a bad dad. I mean, maybe this has nothing to say. Hunter's foibles have nothing to do with how Biden might govern. But the one thing I've noticed in all of this is just looking at the text, looking at the communications, Joe Biden has continually given Hunter Biden, seems to have bailed him out, seems to have helped him, seems to have, and I could be totally wrong about this, seems to have enabled him a little bit, I think. And that makes me think we're dealing with somebody who's very soft-hearted. There are positive things about that. But look, in the world of international politics in general, but international politics, soft-heartedness doesn't get you anywhere. And in fact, it can get you destroyed. It can get you blown up. It can get you invaded. Is the way Biden has handled this with his son, is that indicative of somebody who just really doesn't want to make the hard decision?
No, absolutely. And we've talked about this behind the scenes here at Western quite a few times. It very much epitomizes the idea that Biden makes a terrible villain. He is, when the right is looking for folks to run their campaign ads against, they're not running them against Joe Biden because Joe Biden is kind-hearted to a fault. That's kind of the problem, is that he, at the very least, looks like a dove. I think that, things like the Clarence Thomas hearings back in the day before my time, watching video of that, I would say that he's not actually the dove he appears to be, but maybe with his family he is.
Even then, it's not that bad.
No.
Even then, he is very hard to nail.
Yeah, he knows the optics of the situation. I think that is the problem, is that you can be, as firm or as, decent on the outside as possible and as loving as possible, but people will love you even if you fail. Yeah. And that's the problem with Biden, is that a lot of the country likes him, finds him to be a likable person, even when he fails.
I just think we got to wrap this up. I'm going to ask you a quick thing here, Cameron. I just think, gosh, how much the country has changed in 60 years. The iconic, when you think of president's children, the iconic photo of John Jr. saluting the hearse as it went by, and you go from that to what we have with Hunter, and that's, look, people's lives turn out differently, but it's just remarkable how little we expect now and have been trained to expect. Cameron, you think we're going to keep getting, you think Hunter Biden's going to continue to, more revelations are going to come out, and we'll continue to see just how deep his depravity goes, or do we finally know him for what he is?
I think we'll probably hear some more stuff about this, but I'll maybe use another example. I know it's kind of not the same, because I know Hunter and Joe Biden probably agree on the political side of things, but if anyone remembers, like Ron Reagan, the guy with all the atheist ads out, this is not the first president where we've kind of had a kid who will very much act as a counter to the president of the United States and eventually kind of make their own news in a way. I think Ron Reagan is definitely a lot more deliberate in that sense, because that is a political thing, but I do think that history will probably see the sons who kind of made their own news in a way and look at them in relatively similar ways with that.
All right, that's Cameron Arcand, our correspondent in Orange County, who knows a great deal about crack cocaine. Thank you, Cameron. All right, so let's stick with Cameron. Talking about drugs, we got lots of drugs coming over the border, and we've got things potentially more dangerous than drugs coming over the border. We're seeing weapons come over. And the possibility that terrorists are coming over is not out of the question either. Cameron, you've been keeping an eye on that. Tell us about what's going on at the border and kind of the latest threat there.
Yeah, so each month at the border, the past few months, we keep breaking records. And in April, we had over 175,000 people have encounters with Border Patrol agents. That is a lot of people. And sometimes it might be counted twice, but either way, it's still quite a bit. But last month, Border Patrol encountered more than 33,000 people crossing from the border that weren't from Central America, which means a good chunk of them came from places that are overseas. We were seeing a lot of India, Romania, Cuba, Europe, and a lot of other countries, including this is from the New York Times. Border Patrol agents have encountered migrants from more than 160 countries. That's almost the whole world. where people are trying to come across. And the logic with this has to do with Biden ending the Remain in Mexico policy from the Trump administration, because these people, if they are able to make it into the United States, they're able to wait here for maybe up to like 1 or 2 years while waiting their immigration hearing to stay in the United States. So one thing I wanted to ask you guys about this, I'll ask Josh this, has to do with why is this happening and how do we stop it?
Well, you nailed it just now. You nailed part of it, which is the abolition of the stay in Mexico policy. You know, if you're fleeing North Africa and you manage to get to Greece, and then okay, if I can get across and get to Mexico, then I can get to the U.S. Hey, good deal. If you're fleeing North Africa, you end up in Greece, and you learn, okay, I can get to Mexico, but I'm going to have to wait there. Greece, I'd probably rather hang out in the Mediterranean than I would in drug country in North Mexico. So I think that's an enormous part of it. The Biden administration clearly, whether they intended to or not, it's kind of engaged the left where they are. Let's say they weren't trying to send out the message that, hey, we're open for business for everybody. They absolutely did. There's no other explanation for why you have migrants showing up in, hey, thanks, Biden, we're here, T-shirts. So the administration sent out that message and rolled, I mean, the most hilarious thing out there, you had states considering whether or not to allow other citizens to cross state lines because of COVID, and then we roll out the welcome mat to the world. It was absolutely crazy. So abolishing that policy, but then just the essentially the dovishness of the left and no, not the left, the dovishness of Democrats on immigration issues. The left gets incredibly militant on immigration issues once it has what it wants. Once the left gains control of a country, then they become unbelievably militant about border security and border controls and patrols. So so it's Democrats' move right now. It is a short-term attempt for the leftists to get Democrats more control in the United States by diluting the voting system, the voting pool, and then once they get control, they'll shut down borders like crazy. The only problem is then they're keeping you from leaving. That's what I would say.
Well, one thing that's kind of funny on that note about the Democrats is kind of the general tone these days is they brag about their immigration policies, which I don't even think they have a coherent policy. I don't think the right still also needs to figure out what we believe in on immigration, because there's no coherent immigration tone now, because everyone seems to be divided between the nativists, the people who think that legal immigration should happen but not illegal, and then people who are like, let's have open borders. So there's no in between with with a lot of these.
But that's not a conservative position. Open borders is not a conservative position. It's arguably a libertarian position, but I don't think it's a popular position amongst conservatives.
But one thing I wanted to say, though, is that the Democrats have to have this tone where they at least say they want to be more lax on immigration policies, yet they kind of don't like America all that much. And
if we're so racist, come to our racist country. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense. I'm sorry I cut you off. That's a great point.
And if we have people from from all over the world wanting to come to the United States, isn't that just proof of American exceptionalism? I want to see Andrew's thoughts on this.
No, you're spot on again. Both of your intros have been just spot on answers to these questions. I mean, just the idea that this is American exceptionalism. The fact that we're going to talk about how broken the American system is, and sure, we've got our flaws and we've got our foibles, most of them coming from what you're talking about with both sides maybe there's a mildly coherent position, but really the position of both sides, particularly on the issue of immigration, and I've covered it at length in the last month or so, particularly speaking with Center for Immigration Studies with Mark Krikorian 2 weeks ago, is that both sides are just essentially operating on, well, my position is the opposite of their position, less on the details of their position. The problem for Democrats is that if all of my other positions are that our system is fundamentally broken. There's nothing good here for, non-white individuals. Then why is everyone in the world scrambling to get here? Why is it that people are swimming from Cuba and making one of the most, and again, when we talk about the humanitarian crisis at the border, we mean, there are folks who are bringing infants from, the tip of Belize up to the United States through just absolutely horrifying deserts, bad conditions, no water. And then, like you said, in North Mexico, a massive, massive drug cartel situation between multiple cartels, cartel wars just 2 years ago, like all-out war on the streets in Mexico. But people want to come here.
They're literally willing to risk being raped repeatedly. When you think about it, I mean, because that's essentially that's part of the currency in dealing with coyotes.
The coyotes are horrifying.
So women are literally willing to risk a high risk of being raped multiple times just so they can get to America. Which, again, you're exactly right. The 1619 Project, the left in general, America is supposed to be this horrible, horrid, racist country. Yet we're having to build walls to keep people out. That's astounding. And I've yet to hear a leftist explain that contradiction.
No, they don't want to. If there's any reason to avoid a topic, it's because I don't have a coherent ideology. Everything is in conflict with itself.
And then the conversation becomes from the left, oh, well, look, I'm not even going to engage you on talk about the border because you're a racist, and I don't talk with racists. And that's intellectually problematic. But okay, that's good, Cameron. That's excellent. Let's move on. We're going to go a little long today. That's okay, though, folks. You're sticking with us here, so we appreciate it. Andrew, so let's go to Andrew. Last thing, we're talking about some legislation that's held up in the Senate. You were telling me about this ahead of time, but again, I'm just an old chunk of coal, and I didn't understand what you were saying. Enlighten me and the audience.
Well, Josh, I wouldn't say you're an old chunk of coal. You're definitely old, but I mean, not thick up in the skull. Not a lot of people like to dig into these procedural problems in the Senate the way that I do. I find it deeply interesting. Something that is deeply interesting this week is that a piece of legislation that has been held up is not just being held up, in the last couple of months since Biden took office, or even in the last two administrations, but has been held up for 8 years. I don't like to generally clap my hands at Democratic policymakers, but with all the talk in Washington about how American politicians are for the veteran, of all the people that have been for the veteran, Democrat Senator Kristen Gillibrand from New York has been spot on. The last 8 years, after in the 1990s and then particularly in 2010, 2011, 2012, massive scandals with sexual assault in the military. Massive data dumps from Pentagon reports finding that a lot of people were self-reporting sexual incidents that were then going up the chain of command to their direct supervisors, to their direct chiefs and staff and commanders, and just getting brushed aside, brushed under the rug, or not pursued or not sent to court-martial to even be investigated. And so Kirsten Gillibrand in 2013 got on this train, and she said, this is a bipartisan issue. This is something we can all get behind, is making sure that bases are safe for not only women, but for everyone that's in the military. There shouldn't be, our people who want to go and serve the country should not be putting their bodies at risk, here in the States and on base. There should be a camaraderie, there should be a unity, and no one should be preying on other service members. And so there have been multiple attempts to get this through. The most recent attempt is this year. We have seen the introduction from Gillibrand of a bill that would it does four things. It gives prosecutorial discretion for serious crimes to, quote, independent, trained, and professional military prosecutors, leaving misdemeanors and uniquely military crimes within the chain of command. So it's really just for heinous crimes, like real acts of violence against one another. That prosecutorial discretion is going to be taken out of the chain of command and given to real independent investigators in the military. Some independent JAGs on everything. Okay. Procure DoD funding and prioritization for specific sexual assault training for those investigators and for the military at large, and then a major assessment and approval upon all of the on-base security measures that we see in the military. So nothing major, not a ton of funding in this bill, just an attempt to kind of shake up the leadership structure and make sure that that when we're looking into these things, it's independent. And as a conservative who was against the way that Brett Kavanaugh was treated and against kind of the way that the Me Too movement got deeply out of hand. This is incredibly measured, and it's also incredibly bipartisan. 64 senators now are co-sponsors on this bill. They don't just support the bill. They are written on the legislation supporting this bill to get through Congress.
Wow.
Of course, unfortunately, there's a couple Democrats in the Senate who want a little bit more power and who are jockeying with a little bit of procedural politics to get their way. And one of them is Senator Jack Reed, who 3 times this week, when Kirsten Gillibrand took the Senate floor to ask for a floor vote, she just said, let's vote on this piece of legislation. It would pass. It couldn't be filibustered. It's easy. We can walk in. We can have this vote in 6 hours. Let's get it done. And Jack Reed, the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said no. He said no because there was an independent review that has been conducted in the first 90 days by Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin for the Biden administration, and he would like his committee to get oversight, and he would like to make sure that the Biden administration's review works its way into the text of this legislation, and that they get to have the Secretary of Defense has a little bit of say in how this legislation moves forward. To me, that sounds a little bit like Jack Reed wants to cozy up with Biden, make his name known with the administration, show himself as a loyalist, and he's willing to slow up deeply, deeply well-supported bipartisan legislation. Ted Cruz, Chuck Grassley, Rand Paul.
Who are the other people who are opposing it? Not looking for names, but is it split?
So that's the problem, is there's very little opposition. There are 64 people in support, and there is one senator trying to gum it up with procedural nonsense that doesn't need to be followed up on. Of course, Chuck Schumer could, as we saw with Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell was great at setting the schedule and working it around to get the things that the Republicans wanted done. Chuck Schumer could do the same thing, but he's another one who wants to cozy up with Biden, so we need to make sure infrastructure comes first. Maybe we can loop military sexual assault reform in with the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which isn't going to be signed until August. So we're delaying legislation that has been delayed for 8 years, that is widely supported by the American public and by our senators, on both sides of the aisle here, for a couple people to play politics and get close with the administration. It's ridiculous to me. It's outrageous to me. And
so is this just because they're so close, is this just a bunch of Democrats who have gotten in lockstep with Reed and said, all right, we got your back on this. We'll back your PR play. Are there Republicans who are opposing it too?
No, there are a couple people I think who have voiced, if it goes through committee, I'll say a few words, and we might want to push a couple changes, but nothing major. Okay. It's essentially he blockaded the floor vote on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And so what I wanted to ask you guys first and foremost is this, given the outline that I gave you guys, is this controversial legislation? I mean, do we support this legislation? Is this crazy?
Cameron, what do you think? You're in California, the capital of crazy. What do you think?
Well, if 64 senators are backing it up, if you can get Gillibrand and Cruz on the same page, I'm going to wager there's probably something that people can agree on in there. It doesn't seem like this, when you're dealing with issues like this, it doesn't seem like there's anything that could be going on. I haven't read the legislation, so I don't know, but it just doesn't, something doesn't seem right here about using a lot of procedural rules to kind of make sure this doesn't happen.
Well, what I'm curious about is what the media landscape would look like if it were a Republican holding up sexual assault, legislation designed to minimize sexual assault and abuse and then prosecute it. The media would be all over that, essentially making the argument. If it were Ted Cruz holding this up, the media would be
a conversation.
Cruz the rapist would be trending on Twitter, and the entire argument would be that Republicans, just like it's a Republican war on women, the war on women. And yet, when it's Democrats doing this, there's hardly a peep. Not to say there's nothing, but there's hardly a peep comparatively anyway. And this is another great opportunity for women who are like soccer moms who they vote Democrat because they think it's trendy and they think it's cooler to be a liberal, to realize, let me tell you something, the left does not care about you. No. You are a pawn to the left. You are a pawn to the left. And right now, they have decided to put women in the military in a more precarious position so that a senator can get a little more attention. That is what the left looks like, folks. If you're women watching, you're undecided on where you are politically, let me tell you something, they do not care. They do not care about you. And the way they have treated you on the trans issue should also tell you that. They are completely willing to wreck anything that is woman only in order to enable the trans movement. So I think this really just shows where Democrats are in general.
Yeah, I mean, and what does it say about? I've always hated this, kind of majoritarian conversation of, well, if the majority of America supports the legislation, how did it not pass? How did it fall apart 51 to 49 in the Senate? That's, I hate that conversation. That's not how the system works. It's rarely how democratic representative democracies work. In a case like this, where it's almost 2/3, a supermajority of a body of legislators, of those representatives that support this legislation, what does it say about this system? What does it say? Forget that. What does it say about the Democratic leadership that we now have, that they're willing to backseat legislation that is so widely supported just to see, Joe Biden's wish list put forward?
Yeah, it's sort of the complete opposite right now. With representative democracy, what you should have is legislators who can pretty easily pass the things that the society agrees are important, but are not influenced by kind of mob thinking. Mm-hmm. So essentially, they should push through the stuff. Yeah, hey, yeah, we all agree on that. Yeah, rape is bad. That would, rape should be punished. That's something that should go through without a problem. But they should stop legislation that is strongly influenced by what's going on in the news or this or that or the other. They should take time and be deliberative. This is the reverse. We're passing legislation right now that no one wants. We're spending $6 billion we don't have, or we're spending $1.9 billion for infrastructure where only 6% of it's infrastructure. Nobody wants this. So we're passing that, and then we're not passing legislation that everybody does want. It's the exact reverse of what the legislature in a democratic republic is
living in
supposed
the
to be
upside
doing.
down.
Yeah. Essentially, that's it. We're living in the upside down. Everything, but it's not. It's not that though. It is reality, but it's reversed. Things are functioning in a reverse manner from the way in which they should function. There's hope, though. There's hope. There's still free elections in America. If the states will get their acts together and pass ballot security measures, that will make sure the elections stay free. Be pushing your state representatives and state senators on that. We're going to wrap it up for the week. We've gone over time. We appreciate you for sticking with us. Thank you very much. We do hope you have a good weekend. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button. After you click that, a little bell's going to come up. You can click on that bell. That'll make sure that you get notified when we go live. That essentially is going to help with the dreaded shadow banning that we all know about. Additionally, thank you for watching us. Thank you for reading articles at westernjournal.com. We appreciate your support there. If you feel led to support us in a more direct way, please go to westernjournal.com/join, westernjournal.com/join. There we've got some options for you to help partner with us on a month-to-month basis, where really you can help underwrite the reporting we're doing and the fight that we are engaged in. We're in this fight with you. We're doing this together. We're reaching out to you. We appreciate it when you reach back to us, and together we are fighting against the left and working to drain the swamp. Again, that is going to be it for us this weekend. You will be able to catch us next week, as you normally do, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern,
the
2 p.m.
George
Pacific.
play.
Yeah. And that's going to be it for us for now. We hope you have a great weekend. For Andrew, for Cameron, for everybody else at the Western Journal and WJ Live, I'm Josh Manning. Thanks. We're going to see you Monday.